40 miles north of Amarillo, Texas, October 1958. There's a wheat farm out there where you see the windmill before you ever see the house. Walter Vaughn died on that farm in February. The bank started mailing letters in March. By October, the bank brought the auction straight to his front yard. Ada Vaughn stood on her own porch that Saturday and watched men she had never met park their trucks in her husband's wheat stubble. 31 years her family had held that dirt. In about an hour, it was going to belong to whoever raised a hand the highest. Here's what happened. The Vaughn place was 320 acres of hard red wheat ground. Walter's father cut the first furrow into it behind a mule team in 1927. Walter took the reins in 1944, the same year the Navy sent him home from the Pacific. He married Ada that year too. They raised one girl on that ground. Her name was Ruth. Walter did the work himself, all of it. He ran the combine. He pulled calves in the dark. He climbed the windmill in a hard wind to grease the head because there was nobody else to send up. He kept the bank note in his head the way other men keep a prayer, and every harvest he knocked a little more off it. Every harvest it got smaller. Then one freezing morning in February, he was fixing fence in the north quarter and his heart quit on him. He went down in the bunch grass with the fencing pliers still closed in his fist. Ruth found him around noon. He was 56 years old. Ada tried to hold it together. She could not do it by herself. The two hired hands drifted off to the oil patch, where the money came every Friday, and nobody made you climb a tower. The wheat came in thin that season. The price slid 2 cents a bushel. First National and Amarillo carried the note through the spring, and then one day it stopped carrying it. A man drove out in April with a folder riding on the seat beside him. He said he was sorry. He said it twice, like the second one would help. The farm would go to public auction in October. Whatever the sale brought over the debt, the widow could keep. Everybody in that county already knew the sale would not bring one single dollar over the debt. Saturday came cold and clear. The cars showed up early. Pickups and dusty sedans lined the section road for a quarter mile. Neighbors stood around in their clean Saturday shirts with their hats down in their hands. Nobody talked loud. A boy sold coffee out of the back of a wagon, 5 cents a cup. Cy Pruitt sat up on the flatbed of his truck. He was the auctioneer. He had sold 60 panhandle farms that year. He did not enjoy the work anymore. The bank man stood down beside the flatbed with his black ledger held tight against his chest. And there was a third man, heavy pale gray suit. Cream Stetson. He had driven up from Dallas that morning. He bought ground for a cattle outfit that had spent the whole year picking up foreclosed wheat farms, one at a time, cheap, the way a man picks fruit off the low branches because it costs him nothing to reach. He stood off by himself. The neighbors would not look at him. He did not seem to care one way or the other. Ada Vaughn came down off her porch. Ruth walked beside her wearing her father's old canvas jacket, sleeves rolled 3 times. They stopped at the edge of the crowd over by the windmill, close enough to see it and far enough not to be inside it. Then way down at the end of the section road, a beat-up truck pulled onto the shoulder. A man got out, tan Stetson, canvas ranch coat. He did not walk up into the yard. He leaned back against his front fender, folded his arms and watched. Nobody knew him yet. Cy Pruitt opened at 10 o'clock sharp. He read the legal description off his paper. 320 acres, the house, the barn, the combine shed, the windmill, the stock tank. He read it flat, the way a man reads something he has already read too many times in 1 year. All right, Cy said. Let's start the bidding. And the yard went dead quiet. Every man in that crowd looked at his own boots, understand something. Every one of them could have used 320 acres of good wheat ground, every single one, and not one hand came up. Because you do not bid against a widow standing on her own front lawn, not in that county, not while she is right there by her own windmill watching you do it. It was the oldest rule out there. Nobody ever wrote it down. Nobody ever needed to. Cy Pruitt knew the rule. He waited anyway. He had to. Come on now, gentlemen. Good ground, good water, 40 feet to water, nothing, a meadowlark somewhere out in the stubble, the windmill turning slow in the wind. Then the man from Dallas lifted one finger off his belt buckle. 6,000. That was not an offer, that was a burial. The debt on the Vaughn place was $9,000 and change. 6,000 meant the bank swallowed the loss. The widow walked away with nothing, and the cattle outfit picked up 320 acres for about the price of a decent tractor. Cy Pruitt looked at the bank man. The bank man looked down into his ledger and kept looking down. I have 6,000, Cy said. His voice had gone tired. 6,000 once. Ada Vaughn did not move. Her face never changed. But Ruth's hand came up and closed around her mother's arm above the elbow and held on. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this one travels. 6,000 twice. Cy Pruitt raised his hand for the third and final call. 11,000. The voice came from the back, from the road. Every head in that yard turned at once. The man in the tan Stetson had not come off his fender. He had one hand up, easy loose. The way a man raises a hand to answer a question when he already knows the answer. Cy Pruitt squinted down the section road. Say that again. $11,000. The Dallas man turned all the way around. He looked at the truck on the shoulder. He looked at the man leaning on it. Something crossed his face. He had bought 60 farms that year, 60, and not one time had he been made to work for it. 12. The Dallas man said 13. The man at the road never raised his voice. 14. 15. The Dallas man's jaw slid side to side. 15,000 was real money. 15,000 was more than that ground would bring in a bad year, and every year out there lately had been a bad year. He looked over at the bankman like the bankman was going to save him. The bankman had finally lifted his eyes off the ledger. That's all for me, the Dallas man said, and he said it loud. The way a man says a thing when he wants it to sound like his own idea. Cy Pruitt was not squinting anymore. He was standing straight up on that flatbed. I have 15,000, Cy called out. 15,000, bid from the road. He raised his hand. 15,000 once. Nobody in that yard was breathing. The boy with the coffee wagon had set his pot down on the tailgate. 15,000 twice. Ada Vaughn was staring down the section road at a man she had never seen before in her life. Her mouth had come open a little. She did not know it had. Sold, Cy Pruitt said. Sold. $15,000. The man came up the section road and into the yard. He walked the way a man walks when the hard part is already finished. The neighbors opened up and let him through, and nobody had to ask them to. By the time he reached the flatbed, half that yard had placed the face, and the other half was getting told in low, fast whispers. He did not go to the auctioneer first. He went to the bankman. Cash, he said. He pulled a long brown leather wallet out of his coat. He counted it out onto the lowered tailgate. $100 bills. He counted slow, out in the open, in front of 60 witnesses. And he only counted it one time, because he counted it right. The bank man counted it again with shaking fingers. $15,000. It covered the debt. It covered the back interest. It covered the auctioneer's fee. And there was still money sitting on that tailgate when he was done. Whatever's left goes to Mrs. Vaughn, the man said today. In writing before you get in your car, the bank man wrote out the receipt standing up, using the side of the flatbed for a desk. Then the man turned to Cy Pruitt. You've got the deed. Yes, sir. I'll have it drawn up this afternoon, down at the courthouse. Draw it now off the back of your truck. You've done it that way before. Cy Pruitt had done it that way before. He got his deed forms out of the cab. He filled it in standing up, flatbed for a desk, wind trying to tear the paper out from under his hand. 320 acres, the house, the barn, the windmill, the stock tank. Then he came down to the line for the buyer's name. Who do I put here? The man looked across the yard. Ada Vaughn was still standing over by the windmill. Ruth was still holding onto her arm. Neither one of them had come a single step closer. They still did not understand what they had just watched. Put Ada Vaughn, the man said. Cy Pruitt's pen stopped dead on the paper. Sir, Ada Vaughn, it's her farm, put her name on the line. He could have driven on by. He was 51 years old, 40 miles north of Amarillo on a Saturday morning, with a long road ahead of him and a picture waiting on him in Arizona. Rio Bravo. Howard Hawks. His trailer was already parked and sitting on the lot at Old Tucson. He could have heard an auctioneer's voice carrying across a section road and kept his boot down on the gas. He could have bought that ground and kept it. The way the man from Dallas would have kept it. The way just about anybody alive would have kept it. Instead, he counted $15,000 onto a stranger's tailgate and put a widow's name on the deed. Cy Pruitt finished writing. He climbed down off the flatbed and carried that deed across the yard himself, and the whole crowd watched him walk every step of it. He put it in Ada Vaughn's hands. She read it again. Her hands started to shake, and Ruth took the paper away from her before it could hit the ground. I can't, Ada said. She was looking past the auctioneer, straight at the man by the truck. Mister, I can't ever pay this back. I don't have it. I'm never going to have it. It isn't a loan. Then I can't take it. I can't take a thing like this from a stranger. Have you ever had somebody hand you back the one thing you were already certain you had lost? It takes the wind right out of you. It takes a while before your own hands will believe it. The man crossed the yard to her. Up close, he was older than the pictures of him. The crowd had gone completely silent. Even the wind seemed to lay down. Mrs. Vaughn, yes. Your husband he served. Ada nodded. The Navy, the Pacific, 42 to 45. He came home in 44 to put the crop in, and then he went back. Then he already paid for this ground. Paid a whole lot more than $15,000 for it. He touched the brim of his Stetson. It isn't charity, and it isn't a loan. Call it back pay. Long overdue. You keep this farm, you bring the wheat in. You send that girl to school if she's got a mind to go, and if she's got a mind to stay here and farm it instead, you let her do that too. Ruth Vaughn looked up from the deed in her hands. What's your name? She asked him. I want to know it, so I can tell people who did this. The man was already turning, already walking back toward the section road. Tell them a fella stopped for the auction, he said over his shoulder. But Cy Pruitt, up on that flatbed, had placed the face 10 minutes ago, and Cy Pruitt could not hold it in 1 second longer. That's John Wayne, Cy said, to nobody, to everybody, to that whole quiet yard. Lord, that's John Wayne. The man never turned around. He lifted one hand, the same easy hand he had raised to bid, and he kept on walking. He got into his beat-up truck. He pulled off the shoulder onto the section road, and he pointed it south and west, toward Amarillo, toward Arizona, toward the picture that was waiting on him at Old Tucson. The dust came up behind him and hung there in the cold October light. Ada Vaughn stood in her own yard on her own ground, holding nothing at all, because her daughter was holding the deed. She watched that truck until the truck was gone, and then she stood there a good while longer after it was gone. Ada Vaughn brought the wheat in. She brought it in that first fall with Ruth up on the truck and 2 neighbor men who flat refused to take her money. Then they took half of it because she would not quit holding it out to them. The crop came in thin again. It did not matter. The ground was hers. There was no note on it, and there was no man from the bank coming up the section road in April with a folder on the seat. She farmed it 23 years. She learned the combine. She learned the windmill, the whole greasy top of it in the wind. She kept Walter's old habit of carrying the whole place in her head. Except now there were no loans in there. Only the running of it, and she ran it. Ruth went down to the teacher's college at Canyon for 2 years, then came home because she wanted to. She married a panhandle boy named Tom Edelman, and the two of them worked that ground right alongside her mother. Ada Vaughn died in the farmhouse in 1981. She was 76 years old. The wheat was already in the ground. Ruth and Tom kept farming it. After them, their son, 320 acres, 40 miles north of Amarillo. Never sold again. Never mortgaged again. Handed down exactly the way Walter's father meant for it to be handed down. John Wayne drove on to Arizona that October and made Rio Bravo. He made a great many pictures after it. He never spoke of that auction once, not to a reporter, not in an interview, not in any letter anybody has ever turned up. The man from Dallas, though, he told the story for years in cattle company offices. The way a man keeps telling a story that still bothers him a little. That is most of how it ever got out at all. $15,000. One Saturday morning, one hand raised easy off a section road. Ada brought in 23 harvests on that dirt. Ruth and Tom brought in better than 30 more after her. The wheat that came off those 320 acres over the next half-century fed people who never once heard this story. It paid for a teacher's college education. It paid for a new windmill head in 1971. It paid for 2 more weddings in that same front yard. All of it grew up out of a deed that a county auctioneer filled in standing up, with the wind pulling at the paper, off the back of a flatbed truck. The farm is still there. It is still a working wheat farm. Drive 40 miles north of Amarillo and turn off on the right section road, and you will see the windmill first, and then the house. Inside that house in the kitchen, there is a framed document on the wall beside the window. It is the original deed. October 1958, 320 acres, conveyed to Ada Vaughn, and down at the bottom, in Cy Pruitt's careful hand, there is one line the auctioneer added himself before he carried it across the yard that morning. Purchased and conveyed the same day at no charge to the grantee, by request of the buyer. The buyer's name is not written anywhere on that paper. He would not let Cy write it down. In the drawer under that window there is a folded auction handbill from that Saturday, gone soft as cloth from being unfolded, and read, And there is one photograph, Ada and Ruth on the porch steps, October 1958. The two of them holding the same single piece of paper between them, neither one of them quite smiling yet, because it had not finished being real. The afternoon sun comes through that kitchen window and lies across the framed deed for a while every single day. Then it moves on off the wall and out past the window, and the wheat keeps coming up. If this one reached you, do me a favor, pass it on. Share it with a veteran in your life. Hit subscribe if you have not yet. There are more Duke stories coming.